progress. Um, Hello, it is January 8th, 2025, and I'm here with Fiona Gardner. I'm Megan Macdonald. Fiona and I have talked before. Maybe you saw our other conversation. And once again, we're going to be talking about urine and structure and crystalline uh, formations. Why are we doing this? So both of us are longtime Shivambhu or urine practitioners. If you're watching us, you're on my YouTube channel, or somebody has sent you a link to this. So I have been practicing with Shivambhu since February of 2013, daily practice, and ended up teaching about it, very surprisingly. If you want to know more, my information and Fiona's information will be in the show notes below, and you're welcome to get in touch. Fiona, amongst other things, has worked in microscopy, but also is very knowledgeable about so many esoteric pursuits and how those pieces of information link up with what we're currently doing. Is there anything you want to say in terms of where you're coming at this from, or do you want to jump right into the slides? Where are you?
Well, we can just jump right in. I mean,
Okay.
yeah,
Um,
just jump in.
there's quite a few videos where I think like little bios on both of us and different things. So yeah, it does feel like I like the idea of us continuing the conversation and just getting into it. And so one of the things that is really interesting, so for people who are joining us for the first time potentially, or saw the other conversation that we had, um, this this way of looking at urine is so different because most people think of it as, just something that leaves their body. If they make the shift to looking at it as potentially good for their health or medicine or any kind of a gift, that's already a huge shift. But to then take it on and go, what, not just, well, maybe it has vitamin C or it has zinc or it has something like that in it, which feels very um, much part of our 3D world. We're taking this, we're going so deep into the intricacy, the subtlety, the energetics of it. And so it's a very different way to talk about this. So this is one of my favorite ways to dive into the spirituality of it, really. And today we were having a little discussion before we started, and you had said you wanted you well, you always get curious. And I think all of us, that's part of it. We get curious and we run the experiment on ourselves or with what we're doing. But you got curious about how urine and its structure work. So what is this slide all about, or why these slides put together like this?
Okay. Just one that I want to make sure. Number 12, I don't want to play the video at the end. That was
Yeah,
something that wasn't taken out. And you can always press play if you want it bigger on the screen so you don't have the sidebar. I felt that. I just
right.
wanted to mention that.
Sure.
So yes, so you're exactly right. I was really, really curious about urine because it's so multi-dimensional. It does many things. It's used in so many things. With plasma therapy was, as I was drinking my urine, I wasn't wanting to drink water as much. That was just the natural flow, the tastes thing. There was just something off. So I wanted to start looking at, because there's so much information out there about the structure of water, all the devices and extra things that you can have. Um, so so this picked so I was using tap water, which is my tap water at my house, but it's also well water. So it's not city water, but I have looked at city water and done that too. So this is just what it looks like under the microscope as it's going through its dehydration, as it's drying out, as it like with everything that I was using the same process that I used with the urine on the slide. There wasn't any difference. So this is just how the water looked. And I mean, it looked beautiful. It was beautiful, today I was like, ooh, it's like a planet, all these colors, maybe this is just represent, all the different minerals in the water. But I didn't see like I see in the urine, like like a charge, like activity or something going on. So I thought to myself, what would happen if I put my evolved urine, wasn't fresh urine at the time, into my water sample? Is it gonna have a difference?
Right. So a couple questions.
Um,
The black outline sort of behind it, is that just the way the microscope works, that it shows up as a
yeah,
dark background?
yeah, yeah. As I am going in closer and coming out. So the one at the top, it looks like a planet. I've pulled out as far as I can
Mm,
to picture that small area completely. It's not the whole area of the water, but the it looked like that all over the sample. So this is again just pulling out and getting a wider look. Yeah. So the black is just with taking the image from the microscope with the light coming up from the microscope.
okay. And then the for people who haven't listened before, again, you're generally dealing with like a drop of water on a glass slide.
Yes, the
Yeah.
drop.
And the sample that you would have taken, so like if you were mixing a evolved urine into water, it would have been like 250 milliliters, or it would have been a couple tablespoons. Was it a big sample or a little sample?
It was about, I say it was like a small glass that I had that I was using because I wasn't even thinking about, like quantities or
Yeah.
ratios of it. I was like, oh, let's see if this works. So I just had my like 1 ml thing. I just squirted it in, mixed
Yeah.
it round. Yeah.
No, just to give people an idea, right? So we're talking about like a cup ish of water, 250 milliliters ish of water with a little squirt of some evolved. So it's not
Yeah.
this isn't a 50-50 mix. This isn't a,
No.
it's a tiny bit of something being added. So the concentration is quite low. So next slide is that's where we're going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see if it'll. Oh, I switched to view it this way. And now when I'm clicking next, it's not doing anything. One moment. I think I'll pull this back up. I'll pull the navigator back
Okay.
up. Okay, there we are. This is the same.
Again, same, yeah, this is the same water, just different areas of the sample.
Yeah.
Because
And
it was beautiful. I just loved the pictures.
yeah, absolutely. And like over here, for example, like in all the urine slides that I've seen from you, like often there's light or there's a lot of color in the light, the parts that look like it's shining with brightness or light to it. So here is that would that be like a light bit in the water?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whether it's like just a particle of something, yeah, in the water.
Okay. And then you
Then I put in the sample and waited, did my usual process, and this is what I was seeing. And it was covering the whole sample.
okay.
And it was gold, it was really vibrant and it was urine. So it's got a lot more potency to it and a lot more solute going on. So yeah, this is how it looked. And to me, I was like, wow, okay. So the in this sample now. And not the way it was looking before. So the to me it's like wow, that just how powerful its effect on water and what it can do.
And so here and like the next slide as well,
Yeah,
the,
this is
the
from the same sample.
the difference that we see is from, like as you said, the first one it was still beautiful, like it had interesting patterns, but I'm just going to flip back to like the first one. And when we talk about structure, like this is wavy, this has lines, there's curves and such. But that when we talk about this idea of the structure and the energy and the possibility and the information, when we go back to this and we see so many lines, uh, connecting pieces, it's like a forest grew.
Yeah, it's like there's hundreds and thousands of like antennas
Mm.
that suddenly switched on that are open to communication, they're open to receiving and they're open to whatever it is that is giving off also. And I did notice like in the sample it was structured with the lines, like the antennas, but there was also the flow of the flowers. It wasn't just dominant in one way.
Mm.
Um, uh, and it was very gold, very bright in some places. Like you can see at the top where you see them very bright lines. That's because it's really, so I have to turn the microscope right down because the light that's coming off it is like, it's like sometimes it's blinding when I'm looking through the microscope. So I have to turn it down. So the images are even toned down. So
Okay.
when I look at it in the microscope, it's like it, it's even more vibrant. So yeah, so the information, we think of like, there's a big conversation about and the waters
Oh,
that
can you
flow.
repeat that? You clicked out. You said there's a big
Okay.
conversation about.
Oh, there's everywhere. There's the big about water holding memory.
Ah, yes. Water holding memory.
Eh,
Yeah.
Yeah, and my thing is like, okay, how's it doing that? What else is a part of that? Because notice when I look at urine, it's not one thing that shows itself. Like these two things are all accompanying each other. Very different and they look very similar, but there's always these two. It's always these, and when we think of it, there's a mass of microflora and biology the fluid also. And the other components to me are like that's memory. That's the intelligence. Water is this divine vessel that all this memory is able to communicate. So it's multidimensional because um, even the organisms are pleomorphic. They can change their form, they can change their shape. So that changes their structure, the information. And because they are so ancient and have been around before we were around, um, they have a vast base of knowledge and memory. So that fascinates me. That what becomes initiated, turned on when we are recycling the plasma.
So
Yeah.
you said two things. What were the two things?
Two different shapes. They're like, we see this very, the structure is very like, looks like it looked like it's on 90 angles, all these antennas, that's what you can have. There's another formation that comes in that's very toroidal and very fluid-like,
Mm.
very plant-like. But what I've noticed is they are always together, like they will connect with each other. It's
Okay.
like so when something contains and starts crystallizing, what happens is the biology floods it because it's given off an energy. So then this biology floods like what is going on here, and they all like it's like a dance that around they kind of like to form themselves around this movement of energy.
Mm.
So they become a part of it. So I don't understand fully what's going on, even after will we ever, within this relationship of these isms with the energy of the body and, you know, um, like even, they have a relationship with that. They're not separate from anything that's going on in this sample. They're like highly aware and in tune with it. So it's like I call it's like the Akashic records of information that can be shared in those moments. That's why our intention, our focus, we can change that with our urine too. That has an effect as well. I don't know if that, and I feel like I went off on a tangent there, but
No, I mean, it's all interesting. The I'm trying to sort of paint the picture for people in terms of saying like the when you start with we're going to look at other types of water, but we're in this first example, you start with the well water. The well water has some structure, but it's a very there's as we said, there's some lines, there's a couple of things. You add the evolved urine, and suddenly you see the same structure that you saw in pure evolved urine taking over. It dominates what was in the water before. Um, it
So I
is
say, oh, sorry.
it dominates what was in the water before, and it also changes the color. As you said, it became very golden, and the slides don't fully reflect that always because you have to turn it down a bit. So the color changes, the structure changes, and the things that are in there, these are pictures of it being static. But part of what you had mentioned was like the well water didn't have a bunch of things suddenly charging through it, or a new growth, a new direction coming on. So crystals forming before your eyes. You add the evolved urine, and suddenly it's in movement again. So it's like the energy that comes in with the evolved urine creates a huge amount of movement, and that's part of what I'm picking up on from what you're saying. And so this whole idea of urine having structure, it has energy, it has possibility, it's information. And you were just talking about some of the ancient information, the ancient um, life forms, in that sense. But I don't want to confuse people too much with like
Yeah.
what we think is where in what we're talking
Yeah.
about. So we'll jump back into the next slide
Right.
in that series, but just to so people are thinking along with us and where you're going. So first, this we then changed and tried another type of water.
Yeah, bottled water. And this is just what bottled water looks like before the urine goes in. You can see it's very different to the tap water as well. There's
Almost
some
pixelated.
similarities. What?
Almost pixelated.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So, and just to, so there's, for me, when I look at it, like, I feel like it's not a strong, coherent field. I
Right.
think that's what I was trying to explain as well with the urine. When you put the urine to it, the coherence field shifts drastically. And bottled water, like it's interesting to watch how the different waters reacted to the urine as
Yeah.
well. So I definitely noticed the bottled water had a very different reaction, but it was
Right.
just as potent, but just still very different. I was like, oh wow, the urine really went to work on that bottled water.
Did it ever? That is a completely different visual,
Yes,
like just
yeah.
completely different. I mean, if I can maybe here, sort of in the middle, you get that sense that there was that granular.
Oh no, they are thousands of crosses. I just
Oh,
could magnify. Well, I didn't give the other. So when I magnified into those areas, it was so heavily crystallized and layered and structured with all its antennas and the crosses and the formation. I
so
just
when
couldn't, it was
yeah.
so intense, the gold, I couldn't pick them out with the
So
microscope.
here on this lower right hand picture, Fiona's talking about antenna, and you can see there's like three or four in a row here that look like they come to a point, and they're next to each other, and as if if you can imagine antenna reaching up. And that's something that we've seen a lot in the slides that Fiona has brought, is this idea of um, an antenna that can give and receive information. So when she says antenna, that's partially
Yeah, and all those things are on different angles as well.
mm,
You know, so and that excites me because that and I feel into that as a way of like they give us more access to the when I say higher levels of the ether, I mean the different levels of our atmosphere, you know, the way the ether is arranged. You know, we have a limited access, say, in our aura field. But I'm telling, once we start doing urine, the access to the ether field increases and I feel it's because of the
mm.
antennas, the angling, the bonding, and that changes.
And when you're talking angles, it's not would you talk about this in a completely flat plane, or are you seeing it in the multi-dimensional planes?
Um, well, it's when I look at the design because it's very fractal, you
Mm,
know. I'm looking at that as it's moving through the fluid, its point. Those angles shift and change. So
mm.
when those angles are shifting and changing, that's different formations of vibration and energy that's being used, accessed, or moving through that sample.
And
Like we can see closer on that one. Yeah.
if we go back to the idea of coherence, so we start with this on the bottled water, and if you're saying there's less coherence in that if, for me, what I'm assuming is I look at this and it doesn't, I mean, again, it's beautiful, but when I compare it to the one with the evolved Orin in it, this, it's not like they're all trying to do the same thing. They're not going, there isn't that sense of let's line up beside each other, let's form a specific shape, or in the idea of fractals where it's like the larger picture is also mirrored in the smaller, and that's part of what I would think of as coherence here, and I don't see it.
Yeah.
Like, is that right?
Right. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And then
Yes.
you come here, and as you said, here there's bigger crosses. And then you said these were all such dense cross form, like cross crystals. And
Right. Yeah.
all the other pictures show. So that's a coherence
Yeah.
of form, shape, structure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. All right. Should we go on to the next water?
Yeah.
This is great. Wow. And so,
Just local spring water.
yeah.
But also, I'd like to say the way this spring water comes up where people go to collect it, it does come through pipes. It's going through 90-degree angles because people have said, yeah, but spring water's so structured, and I'm like, yeah, but when it's coming through pipes or angles, it's going to get distorted, structure
Mm.
gets destroyed. That's proven. So this is just down the road. It's our local spring water. And again, freaking gorgeous pictures that were just like I,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it was so mysterious. Some of the waters give off such a different energy. And this gave off a beautiful energy. It was
Mm.
beautiful to look at.
Yeah.
This so yeah, so again, it was like, okay, let's see how this, and it loved it. My urine had a harder time, what I felt like with the tap water. It was like, oh. Um, but when we look at like water and the bottled water, it was pretty similar in structure. And again, it was grand design with the
Yeah.
and it was like really grand in how it looked.
Mm.
So yeah, changed it drastically again, but very similar, but slightly different.
It's interesting you said grand design, and on the top right picture here, but also on the top right picture here, I almost see like cathedral.
Yeah. What's when I see this kind of structure, and I always think of like Tartarian,
Mm.
one of those incredible designed buildings, with the towers, the spires, and people that have understand about Tartarian know that yeah, a lot of that stuff has been destroyed, etc. But it always has that feel to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
So,
then I think it's an easy way to source energy.
yeah, okay. So, say more about sourcing energy.
So, so I can only go from experience with being on urine therapy and watching how like what I eat changes, how much energy I have when I'm well, I do have with plasma therapy. Um and I forgot what I was going to say. What did you say again? Sorry, because I could
Oh,
feel myself divert into the other
accessing
slides.
energy. Well, just the sort, it's a source.
Accessing
We're sourcing it. Yeah.
Yeah, then it's the same. So like using our like urine, even on our skin when we're out in the sun, it optimizes our energy. There's a release of energy, from that negative charge. We're really tapping back into nature and all the things that we need to do to maintain the charge in our body,
Mm.
to maintain that energy flow, like grounding in the earth, being out in the sun, drinking the right kind of water, and urine therapy, and there's lots of other things too, breathing, all these things that are actually free,
Mm.
freely available are the true source of like energy for our body. I don't find that I get a lot of energy in my body from food anymore because of the limited amount that I eat. I really feel it comes from the recycling of my waters. I just know it does. That's where I get my energy source from. So there's a link up with the ether, with how, when we look at how that, even that Tartarian culture was using the fields and the ethers for energy. You know, our body is designed exactly the same way. Everything that man has created and designed, um, you know, because I hear people say to me, oh, we see those things in like vaxxed blood, you know, or weird stuff. And I'm like, yeah, man has designed everything on pure design of nature, of how it forms, because it has the perfect delivery systems and
Mm.
the perfect way of using energy. And that's us, our bodies too. Our bodies can do that. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, well, no,
Um,
just again, I thinking like, cause like when you start when you do urine therapy for a while and you start talking about it in more deeper, subtle ways, it makes a lot of sense to say I'm sourcing my energy from myself, that my waters are a delivery system for this. And it's not just a it's not like consuming food. Let's put that there. Like the way we were taught, it was you eat food, your body breaks it down, you get energy from that food. And the longer you work, in my experience, in your experience, the longer we've worked with Shivambhu, the Sanskrit name for urine, or orin or urine, all the different words we can use, we find we don't get energy from most food. That's not what we're getting from it. And that is such a radical thing to feel, first of all,
yeah.
to absorb as a new reality. And then when you start living with it, it's just so far removed from what we were taught. But I can't deny that that is absolutely how most things work in my system.
Exactly. Yeah, I
But
know it's,
it takes time. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say that you're so right. It takes time because I found from my experience, I was going through layers with my relationship with food, you know, and still now, even like coming into my fourth, even though the limit really, really limited. Also, I don't loop a lot. I'm not drinking a lot of urine through the day. It maybe it's satisfying, you know, I do all my other protocols. But and I'm not saying you don't hit walls because there's foods that I know I'm addicted to and I crave it. And I'm like, oh God, I just want that. I was so glad to get Christmas out the way and the smells and all the things that like go on around Christmas and all the energy. Because like even like, oh, do you want to meet up and get lunch? And I'm like, no. You know, but it's always the thing of how people want to, you know, I'm like, no, you know, so there's so much energy around food from when we're babies, you know, from when we put that fist in our mouth. So that unraveling from that relationship from food, really profound
Yeah.
and really enlightening to even the belief, you know, I learned that, well, if you go 3 days without food, my mom would say, you're going to die. You
Yeah.
know, you'll die. You must eat because I was a child that didn't eat. I had real terrible food problems, whether you say anorexic or bulimic, but I didn't want to eat food, you know. So I was always like put in a room on my so I'd find ways to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Until my mum caught me, you're gonna die, you know. So I have that, you know, all those things we have to work through that. You know, we change how we feel, think, and believe, and it is a deepening connection with ourselves when we learn
Yeah.
how powerful it is. That it can that we can still survive on what? My plasma, my pee. How's that? You know, so yeah, it's profound. It's profound learning, it's profound knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah. And this constant, like you said, you don't loop all the time. I don't loop all the time. I go through periods where I loop more. If something's wrong, I loop. If I feel like there's an illness or there's a disturbance or I need more support or something, then I might loop. But it's also been years of periods of time where sometimes over the last 12 years I've looped for a couple months and I've looped almost everything. And just because that's what I was doing, not because I had something I was trying to fix. Um, and even this idea of fixing, like I don't think we need to be fixed in that sense either. But you know, if I have a cold, then I get into that sense of I want the mucus to go away. You know, so that's what I mean by fixing.
Yeah.
You know,
And
I
I
want.
feel that, yeah, when we start that, we actually shift our environment. That's huge. So you've got like this physical terrain and our body, there's something shifting and changing once you put that plasma into your body. Your terrain has changed. There's like thing I feel it's kind of like our soils. When we treat our soils in the right way, those dormant seeds that have just things that have just been waiting for the right environment to sprout and come alive. The same's happening in our body. So when we initiate that, they switch on. So that's where I look at like them. I call them the ancient archaea. That's a whole other thing, which is that they get switched on because now their environment is perfect for them. It's more of a stable environment, it's more of what they're used to, and they effectively bring more power to the game. They got more cards to play with when that's initiated, because you really are initiating like right when we look at like cellular memory, because I don't actually believe in cells anymore. So like some of the terminology just sometimes it's hard to say. So we're going right back to the beginning of the formation of the blueprint of the know how to take care of things, know how to up level. Whether that's the right terminology or not, I don't know, because I don't fully understand them
Yeah.
completely. So,
Uh, so in the other discussion we had, and I know other people that Fiona has talked to, and some other, you might find her talking on some other videos or interviews or podcasts as well. But in the other one on my channel, if you want to look at that, she goes into that shift of having examples of what people's urine looks like before they do urine therapy and after, and that just the entire structure of how information is moving through the urine is so completely obviously different. Um, and that is also what people experience and talk about. They say they feel more cohesive, more coherent, more tuned in, more smarter, like better connected to their intuition, better connected to their intellect. Like so many things seem switched on, and that is a term that we use a lot. Should we jump into the other slides?
we could start and I can explain
Okay.
just why I went in this direction.
Okay.
Um,
So I want this one. There we go.
so what was occurring with my journey with urine therapy was, like I've said before, I wasn't drinking as much water. Some water I would take, I don't like the taste of this. And I would also notice how that affected my urine, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I can taste that water.
Right.
So I was noticing and just tuning into my body. I was like, well, you know what? I'm drinking all this fluid. It's mostly water. Yeah, it's got these other great components in. So my mind just said to me, why are you drinking water? So I had to look at that. I'm like, oh, okay. So I was drinking less water. So then I went down the water hole. And then I went down an area with like, we look at like our bodies make water.
Mm.
Water that our bodies make, I know we've talked about this before, is deuterium depleted water. And I'm just going to call it DDW. So I
Yeah.
don't have to use the three words. So I was like reading about that kind of water, how it was being used in cancer treatment, HIV treatments, different things like that, and how that, and this is like when I read that, it said, and how it's like very compatible because it's the same as like the water that our bodies make. And I was like, what? So the other water I was drinking, why is that different? Like the well water, the spring water, the bottled water, and it's like, oh, they have levels of deuterium in them. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna look at this water. I was fascinated because I was like, okay, this is really key because this water is more like my body, and more what's natural, what my body needs. Um, so when I looked at that water, this is what it looked like.
Now,
And
how do you get deuterium depleted water?
I think there's only one place right now. It's called Light Water, Lite. There's a website. I
Okay.
think that another company is going to open up in the US in the summertime, and they're
Hmm.
going to hopefully selling it a little bit cheaper because the thing is it's expensive. Um, I don't even like to use that word because people say, "Oh, it's really expensive," and I was like, "Well, yeah, but I put some money aside because I thought I want that water." You know, it's all relative. Is something expensive or not? But the process of making it is intensive, so
Okay.
that's why it costs a lot more than other water.
But and when you say that our bodies produce DDW, they're producing it in the intercellular spaces,
Yeah,
in the
on
okay,
isoton. Yeah,
mito
I'm making the water. They make water there. The water that our body makes is depleted because our bodies have a hard time with deuterium.
okay. So
So
then
if
our
we're doing,
urine is then by nature DDW.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. So this you got a bottle of it
yeah,
and then you started to play.
I started to play, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I was like, oh my God, my whole world was like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like these. So these are, I see these images in urine. You know,
Mm,
this like it's like a toroidal field that opens up. It's like an explosion of light energy that moves through the urine.
yeah.
So when I looked at the DDW, I was like, it was everywhere. It was literally gold, and it also had some color running
Mm.
through it. I was shocked. It's not, I not that I was expecting anything. I was in curiosity. So when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
Okay. And I could relate to it because I've seen these images in urine.
Yeah.
So deuterium depleted water and we look at urine and it's as well. So these were the images that were geometry as well, like little sacred geometry, like Merkaba, tetrahedras. There was all that going on as well, which was a surprise.
So
But it was so vibrant and alive. I
yeah, so
just,
going back, you say like tetrahedras, like this one on the first slide, like that's a
yeah,
shape that's a sacred geometry shape that showed up.
yeah. And that one wasn't in the DDW.
Okay.
That we'll talk about that later though.
Okay.
They were literally smaller. See that in the top right corner of the big image? You can see it slightly
Yes.
up
Yeah. So
and
there's a bit of
below.
sacred geometry. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember these from the other slides, as you say. Like this is a shape and like the ferny edges. And again, we're talking about antenna. You think about how you see things in the ocean sort of like moving and reaching outward, and they're looking into their environment. Like, is there something out there? Can I feel anything? Am I close to another living being? But there, you can. That is part of what I get from this. It's like this reaching outward.
And thanks for the reminder, but that is like further down. So when I have had the slide, I had like one drop on one end and one drop on the other because so that's normally how I space everything out. I'll do two drops, or I might do one and everything's fine. And I just look at a round image that's dehydrating and drying. This water didn't behave that way.
Mm.
So I put it on, and I wasn't expecting this. So I did the drops and I was busy getting everything prepared. And I looked at my slide and I was like, what's happened? It's like they moved and gelled into one big blob. And I went, well, I'm not looking at that because that's going to take a long time. So I kept doing the separate, and I had to do smaller and smaller amounts, but it doesn't matter. No matter what the small amount I put, it still wanted to push out and reach out until it touched the other sample. So I was like, okay, one sample. So I put one dot, and with the one drop, it was still reaching out. It wasn't staying because what normally happens, it's the sample will stay formed. There's no movement. This didn't want to stay still.
Well,
It
no, I
was
mean, you look at them and they don't look like they're still.
no, it had so much energy.
Well, and like these two in particular, they look almost like the mask.
Yes.
And I see the next slide.
Oh yeah. Well, so while I was in this, I got a whole, well, when you're in those zones, you for me, when I see these formations, I'm looking at consciousness. I'm looking at light language. I'm looking at something that is divine, is spiritual. I'm in this place of being really open and neutral
Mm,
in a sense. So then all I could see was that I was like, why am I feeling that green man
totally.
symbol? Why is that like,
Absolutely.
why do these like saying green? So
But like there it
looking,
is. I totally
yeah.
see what you're like.
Yeah.
It's right. It is absolutely right there.
Yeah. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, we're going into ancientness again, symbology, um, information, pieces of information out there that inform us. Because even in this green man, you do have the Taurus as the eyes, and you have this leaf-like structure, but also what you have on his head is the antlers.
Yeah.
So, and you have the acorns. So I looked at this, I was like, well, the antlers and the leafing, they're those two structures that I all the acorns and the mushrooms. I was like, okay, I see the mushroom family in the urine. I see their energy. The acorns like reminded me of the sacred geometry, the
Yeah.
seed that's present that comes. And I was like, oh, there's so much information in whatever this represents.
Mm.
And it is in urine. So it keeps me in that fractal energy of how things are repeating themselves. Okay, you can see it here, you're going to see it here, and um so I was just looking at then at like the what does this I was looking at this what did this symbol mean, what did it represent?
Yeah.
So the bits of information there were all things that I looked into about that symbol,
Okay.
you know
Yeah. No, it's absolutely beautiful. I love it. And I love all the, I mean, we could spend quite a bit of time just
yeah,
going through the green man and the images. But okay, so this is we're still on the deuterium
still
water.
on the deuterium. So then I asked, I don't normally like put intention or anything, when I'm working, but because this was so profound, I had to ask. I asked the water, I was like, okay, what do I need to know? What's important about this water? What's relevant? What's what's it doing? What's its communication? And that was the it's given. I was like, okay, that's the pineal gland.
Yeah.
This is the skull, and it was so gold. And I was like, okay, it's cleaning up the pineal. That's what's
Mm-hmm.
happened because although with the deuterium levels, which we're told are safe for
Mm-hmm.
us to take in, if you take in too much deuterium, it's going to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, this water, our waters also, it was also telling me that yeah, the DDW water, but also urine. It's cleansing that pineal gland. It's cleaning the pineal gland up. It's bringing that golden energy into our body, and the vibrance and the frequencies of gold.
When you
Yeah.
asked the water, did you ask it and then put something on a slide, or were you asking something that was already on a slide and
No,
it
it's
appeared?
the I did a separate drop of water, and it was very specific,
Yeah.
and the information was very specific. This showed up repeatedly
Mm.
in that in that sample.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, just again, be clear. I that's what
Yes.
I thought
Yeah.
was going on, but I can just hear the questions coming from people watching it later, going, "How did you do it?" Um,
Right.
yeah. But that is, as you say, that is such a clear image. It's like there's the skull, there's the pineal gland. It's lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, yeah. This, I'm here. It's like the water thing. I'm here to help you with this.
Yes.
We're
Yeah.
here for consciousness.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
can't see. Like this is the third eye space, right? You can't see if this is not. So it's like, what is humanity doing right now? We are coming into a new age. And part
Yeah.
of it is about seeing beyond what we've been able to see before. Aquarian age is about that bringing in of information. It's a very intellectual air sign, but it's also linked to water. It's a water bearer. Aquarius is the water bearer.
Uh-huh.
So here we have this new way of using what is like in the head, but it's not all about analyzing with the mind. It's the beyond. It's seeing beyond. And water is part of, if we're going to take it to what we're talking about, water is part of the evolution of humanity.
Yeah, exactly. And
Oh,
our carbon, the
mhm.
carbon, what we are made of as well, is so key in that journey too,
Mm.
because of what that brings. Oh, that's an I don't want to go down that rabbit
Okay,
hole
but I'm
just
making a note.
yeah.
Carbon is part of the journey. Another talk.
That's another talk.
Good.
Um, so these were just other images that were in the DDW water, because sometimes there's like real specific just images. And I thought, collecting all that information, it's all relevant. So these were just other images in the DDW.
And so, I mean, people can see whatever they see, they is what they, I mean, is how I would interpret it. It's like
Yeah.
what you see in someone's tea leaves is what you see. It doesn't have to be the same thing, but I mean, I can see shapes of maybe a humanoid form. Maybe there's a bird, maybe there's a cape, maybe like there's different
Yeah.
ways you could interpret these.
Uh-huh. Yeah, like that be one could be that's like for me that's like some extraterrestrial spaceship, I don't know, going
Mm-hmm.
through the universe fully equipped with everything it needs to get the job done. And I always see these other beings as like they come like as like a representation of the messengers,
Mm-hmm.
that they're like a representation of even like the somatids, that those beings in our body, those they are messengers to me. I call them God's messengers. So these are like that top image, it just looks like a being with this geometry spinning above its head. I'm like, how can you be so obvious?
Yeah.
And I look, that's what always blows me away.
Yeah.
So again, the next slide, in the DW water, we can the geometry, and we see ours into show as well. Again, that's the geometry.
Yeah.
So this the three with the DDW water was an experiment I was doing. Like, wow, that's powerful. If that DDW looks like that, what's it going to do to my? How's that going to shift and change? Even though I'm my plasma cycling and it's look great. So one thing I know, because also I had still drinking small amounts of water.
Okay, so just you broke up a tiny bit. So just so that
Okay.
people are following you, you'd worked with the DDW, or you had it, you'd examined it, and then you thought, what will happen if I'm drinking it? Because you were just saying you were still drinking water. You weren't only
Yeah.
drinking urine, and maybe you
Right.
had, if you ate fruit, then you were getting water through the fruit. You were
Right.
getting liquid in other forms. But part of your question was, what happens to my urine over time? Does the DDW change the urine?
Right.
Okay.
And yes, changes it, but also I stopped drinking the other waters. So
Mm,
I'm just doing DDW here. So what I start to notice is, so when we look at the crystallography shaping, I was like, oh, this is when I started to get more fascinated with the angle. I was
mm,
like, oh, the angle has changed. This is very different. It's not 90-degree angles.
yep.
I can measure up the they were around like 40 degree I was like, it didn't know. It didn't matter. What mattered to me was seeing change.
Yep.
So I can see change and it's very, very specific change in the crystallography as well. So I noticed, oh, I said all these angling is it's very different. The way this geometry shows up is very different. And it's very different when I look at my fresh urine. Because my fresh urine, this is the crystallography from fresh urine. Sorry. So if we're looking at fresh urine, I don't normally see such a display of crystallography in fresh urine. It's
Yeah.
very different. It's just different. Fresh likes to have its time because evolved urine, there's so many things going on. Anyway, so I was like, whoa, this is like really interesting. And then, so these toroidal structures started to show color
So like
because
this one,
they're
like the main.
normally, yeah, they're
Yeah.
normally like platinum, white. So I was like, wow, they have flashes of color. Okay.
Okay. And then, yeah. Hmm.
So then I was like, then I was starting to notice these crystal formations that we saw in the DDW up top there. I was like, okay, the braiding on this current that is
Yeah.
moving through has changed, but
Mm.
also it's gold.
Okay.
And so it was taken, and I was like, ooh, I was like in the face, like, I'm mining gold in my body. This is amazing. What's happening? So these were just like big golden structures.
Mm.
And then like the fun stuff shows up. Because sometimes when I'm in that deep space, there's different things that just come through. And this like image of like, I was just like, I instantly when I saw her, I was like, that's Kuan Yin.
Hmm.
There is no way. I was just like, even like I get goosebumps now. And it was just my whole being was being flooded. And then I was like even thinking about Kuan Yin, she's with water, she's holding a vessel of water.
Yeah.
And then like she is the divine nectar of life that can relieve all suffering. And like when I was like, yeah, plasma. Oh my God. So this symbology it was just symbology that was showing up in my urine.
Yeah.
So, and I hadn't seen it before.
Mm.
I'd seen it like firework displays, like the color it is here in these
Well,
images.
yeah. I mean, it looks like someone's taken a light bright, like those old the toys that we had when we were kids. I don't know if you had one, but it's like a field, it's a black field, and you put little colored lights all over it, and then you turn it on, and you get all
Right,
these lights coming through on a black background. But
right.
it looks like someone sprinkled extra glitter over it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so these were all in this 3 month period. These were the things that were happening. Um, I could still see the geometry was just brighter and clearer. I could see these gold images. You can kind of see it in the background. So
Mm.
this is when then I started noticing that the energy looked like it was destructuring itself.
Okay.
It was my urine was going through a change. My body, what was coming out, my fresh air was going through a change because I was like, wow, the formation is very different.
Mm.
And I've seen this before in other samples and other things, especially with intentions around the heart energy and the vortex. So I was like, the energy didn't change in here. It was like as if I felt like I was calibration.
A
Um,
recalibration. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
I was like, things changing. This is really different because I was going, wow, this looks like the Matrix.
Yeah.
I felt like Neo. I was like, oh my gosh, it felt like there was going to be a breakthrough.
Hmm.
That's how I felt. Because I can even see lines.
Yeah.
See lines where the crystal is still connected to
Oh
the
yeah.
main stem.
Yeah.
And the crystals were beautiful. I have images. I don't have them here of crystals, and I tell you what, there were so many faces in them. It was like I was like, wow. So, another thing I always like to mention when eyes show up for me in an image, in a sample, I have learned that pay attention, stay in your zone, pay attention. It's like you've looked into the unknown, you've looked into the abyss, and it's looking at you. It's always a reminder.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, I'm really grateful. Thank you. I'm really up in and make sure that I'm not just moving through the sample quickly to get images because it's a process of time.
Mm,
To do that, it's like, no, you need to go on high magnification
yeah.
and you need to go slower because there's something I just needed. It's always that's just how it happens. So the next image is, I'd
This
say
image
2 months.
or the next one?
Well, the next one.
Okay.
So yeah, so now I'm 2.5 months in on, I may have been just 2 months of the DDW,
Hmm.
none of the other waters. I was still drinking,
Urine and DDW.
yeah,
Okay.
and my fruit juices.
Yep.
So it's still, so this is how my urine started to evolve. I was like, what? It is identical now with the images that are in the DDW.
Mm,
And when we think about that, whatever water is carrying, however it's programmed, whether it's for the highest intention or not, it impacts us. It changes us. It literally and vibrationally has the power to change us. And for our environment interact with that. So yeah, so everything became very, very gold.
hmm.
So even the images of was vibrant and gold. The flower was spread. They even looked blue through the microscope. So these are just images after being on DW completely and not drinking any other form of water.
And you also said like you weren't drinking very much water either.
I hadn't been, no.
Yeah. So
But
it's not
even,
like you're trying to get 3 liters of water into you a day or something. It's not
oh
that kind of,
gosh,
yeah.
no. You know what? I've always been a person that's even struggled to get a quart of water in my body a day. I've been brought up British. You don't drink water, you drink tea.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
British people don't drink water and they don't like ice in their drinks either. So,
It's too cold and damp. I don't know. I spent six
yeah,
years there. I've never been so cold, and I'm from Canada, and I was
yeah. So
colder in
we'll,
Britain than I am here.
yeah. So we'll drink milk more. And that's the other thing too, especially if you've got a raw milk supply. Raw milks, goat milks are very low in deuterium again. Same with breast
Mm.
milk. So they're kind of things that so I feel that even back then I was still getting a benefit. Anyway, these were the golden structures that were just appearing in my urine as I'm going through this transitional change.
Hmm.
So again, very big, the gold, very vibrant.
And they're not, I mean, I don't know. It feels like you were seeing both the toroidal fields and these, and the toroidal fields feel more refined almost. This feels chunkier. But as you said, this is a transition period. So,
You know what I did, and I didn't put it in here, and I still need to do it. It's actually images of gold. And
mm,
when you look at like the crystallization of actual gold, going through its natural process, and then you look at these, I was like, okay, that makes sense.
okay. So there's a similarity there to how these
There's a
work.
similarity, definitely. But this didn't stay as the consistent thing. That changed and morphed again.
Mm,
So when I was talking about the movement of the DDW on the slide,
hmm.
wants to reach out, wants to connect. It's got that magnetism and energy to connect with itself or another form of like fluid.
Hmm.
Um, this is what's happening outside of
So outside
it.
of it, what do you mean by
So
outside?
as the fluid is moving,
Yeah.
fractaling as it moves, this is how it moves outside as it's stretching outside of the sample.
Okay. Hmm.
And then what I noticed was, so me telling the DDW responded on the slide. My urine the same. So I had to start using one drop because it was just like rushing itself to join. Because looking at a big sample like that is not easy. Um, so my urine was doing this too.
Hmm.
It was moving in this way.
And so there's an attraction. Again, we're coming back to the sense of it having energy and having I would say a desire, but the sense of it wants to do something. It's not just laying there. It has a sense of movement. It has a sense of um
And I feel all these things are relative to the easy water.
mm,
Even the easy water experiment with the two glasses and the water creates a bridge.
mm-hmm,
And that's the same thing that this is doing. And I've
right.
also just experimented doing really tiny nanoparticles in the smallest I could get. To again to keep going small of where the fractal is. Is it the same? Is it repeating itself? Anyway,
And when
so
she
this
says
is
easy water, just to cover that, it's EZ or EZ, and that's exclusion zone water, fourth phase water. If you look at Dr. Gerald Pollack's work, you can find a lot of information on EZ water there. But again, it's H3O2 instead of H2O, and it's water in a plasma state. And that's the state that the urine is also in that state. And the water produced in our body is in that state until it gives its charge to something, because the H3O2 can give a charge, it can give the electricity, and then it reverts. It gives part of it. Well, it gives its charge away. But this is this play in the body of how some part of how the energy moves is with this understanding of easy water. Anyway, back to
right.
bubbles.
So this was another thing that so I'm just taking images of things that I don't see normally in like other water, and I was like, wow, there is so much bubbly activity, going on in this water. It
Hmm.
was fascinating to watch. There's a little so yeah, bubbles. Is it oxygenated, highly oxygenated, the water too? What's actually going on with the microbes in this water, and the whole potency of it being
Oh,
depleted?
should I press play on that? Sorry, I
You
didn't realize you
can.
could go
It's just
down.
moving slightly. I have to if it takes up time.
But just so people get a sense
Yeah,
too. Um,
because you can see like little things moving around, like organisms. It's alive.
And so part just to give people, because I've seen some of your other videos, and if people haven't seen a video, like if we go back now to this slide and understanding that when you took the picture, there was all sorts of movement.
Yes.
And you are capturing a static moment, but when you're looking at, that's part of why looking at urine under the microscope is so interesting, is that there is this movement going on.
So much movement. Real interesting movement, especially in the very beginning, as the sample, as the urine on the slide. There's a whole process organisms start to do immediately. And so again, this is like how I think of easy water. They all start to build a membrane
Mm.
and they all move and they create a certain size membrane. And once that they have finished doing that, then they start vortexing and moving in a vortex. So they start spinning in vortexes. And then what you notice that sample, and this is interesting when we look at energy, west, there everything starts, it's like energy comes in from the left side and the left to the right. There's like, it's like clockwork. And sometimes you'll see them moving in an anti-clockwise or clockwise motion in the whole sample. And
Mm-hmm.
then you might see an inner group that is moving a different direction to them, but they start to spin vortexes. They're
Hmm.
spinning vortexes all around the edges. So we were so what I was noticing on the DDW journey, okay, I've got a load of bubbles in my urine too.
Hmm.
So this was just them drying on the slide.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of like bubbles, we think of like cells and the shape of cells and how for me I think it's more coherence that all the
Hmm.
pleomorphic activity creates these round spherical vortexes where they do their magic in whatever, whether that's a highly oxygenated or like breast milk. Breast milk is bubbly. You look at blood when it comes outside the body,
Yeah.
it looks bubbly. And I'm
Hmm.
just saying bubbly because of that shape, and I'm thinking of like oxygen. But you look at like this is breast milk.
Huh.
Man, breast milk, and you watch it move, it's got a dance. It's beautiful. It's like, yeah, jiggy, jiggy, jiggy. Breast milk is full of that. So that makes me wonder about that whole natural process of our bodies, what our bodies actually need, what of who we are, what we need. Do we really need food? Do we really need to be drinking those? Do we really that cost me $2,000 or $3,000 just to change the water that I'm drinking, when you have it on tap already. The DDW was if you want to go and drink that water, go and drink it because when it ages, Megan, and this is a question I need to ask for you because I haven't experienced this before. I have aged it, right?
DDW or urine?
My urine from
Yeah.
my DDW
Okay.
day, man, it's like fire.
Okay.
I have never come across anything in my aged urine as strong as that. And I will tell a funny story. The 2 ml rectal with all, oh, I'm going to use my DDW. Woohoo. Because I wasn't thinking how like potent it was. And I injected it. I ran screaming to the bathroom because I felt it was a rock coming out my ass. And I had to go and I was like, oh, I could feel that heat rushing through my system.
Yep.
I was like, "Who- uh, no, it needs to be diluted down with fresh. Yeah, here we
Yeah.
are, the
Yeah.
fresh urine. Like we are structuring the water with the urine, taking my fresh and a DDW age just for this extra. Po so I've never experienced anything like you.
Mm.
And it takes the membrane layer off my gum.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah,
Highly potent.
this is,
So so
yeah.
that's when I'm looking at like DDW treatments, people with cancer and HIV.
Yeah.
And is this urine of mine, it's like extra like fire, and it's able to do some things that I have to pay very close attention and deepest respect to, that don't go drinking a glass of that. I don't know
Mm-mm.
what would happen. So yeah, I'm learning a lot about evolved urine and its potentials, but we don't know because there's so much we don't know about it that can change things. So
Yeah.
this was to me was an eye-opening experiment for me to do around water, so that I'm like, yeah, I don't need to drink that. I can drop all that negativity that if you don't drink water, you're gonna die, you're gonna dehydrate, your organs are gonna shrivel up. I can drop that. I can go, no, that's not an actual truth. I can
Mhm.
keep this is the truth.
Yeah. The
So it's
body's
just another
producing its
layer.
own water in its cells. The body will keep itself alive. Now, there is a difference though. Again, you said you can drop it. And if we're holding on to the programming and the truth that says, if you don't drink and if you don't eat, you will die, you will die
Yeah, you will. So
because you
true.
believe you will.
Yeah.
And if you now maybe it won't take 3 days, maybe it'll take 5 days, but like you will be in that mindset of I can't make it.
Yeah.
Whereas when we switch that and go, that's not true,
It's
I
not.
can stay alive for a lot longer without food and water. It inherently shifts the way you live.
Isn't it wild what we identify with, we become?
Yeah.
We really do. We really do. Like the labels of diseases and illnesses.
Yeah.
Like I have some clients say, no, I have this. This is what, and I'm like, they're so attached to their label and their disease that they're not going to heal. That's not somebody I would want to work with because they're too attached to it.
Well,
Yeah.
I was talking to someone yesterday, and part of the the difficulty with the way the system is set up at the moment is that if you feel horrible, you have to get a diagnosis. You need a label before you can get help. And once you have a label, doesn't matter, multiple sclerosis, autoimmune, cancer, whatever it is, you have a label, then you can get help unless you start to feel better. And if you start feeling better, then you no longer have the label. So you have to keep the identity you've been given
Yeah.
if you want
Yeah.
help. And so
Yeah.
it's an insidious system,
Yeah.
right? There is no reward for feeling better. And dropping the identification with the I have this or I am this, right? It's a hard one. And again,
Yeah.
we've all been programmed since we were little to think that's how it works in
Right.
our Western world and beyond. Now it's,
Yeah.
because Western allopathic medicine is the norm
Yeah.
in a lot of places. So yes, when we take this very different stance on what is the water in our body doing, how do we affect it with what we eat, what we drink, what we think, our
Yeah.
intention toward it and ourselves, and that when we start on a journey of curiosity with it, we're going to change it. It
Yeah.
will change because we are now paying attention.
Yeah. And yeah, and that's when I looked at like what how does the urine ch change with intention? And it was beautiful to see it represented itself in color, and it was very highly representative to those chakra of where that intention is coming from. So it's beautiful to see that, yeah, we have an impact on our waters and our water. So if we're not intentional, our waters impact us. So if you're drinking those waters like your tap waters, yeah, I'm like, yeah, bring that extra layer of your intention before it goes, as it's going in, because that's you putting that power and intention into the water of how you would like the water to flow, not how the water thinks it needs to flow
Mm,
or how it's like we were looking at the images before. Well, this is all I have for you. So this is what you're going to get, and then it's going to go through the system. It's like being really highly aware of, no, you impact that going in. The input is key. What we are inputting, everything, that's where the intention needs to be. But
mm,
food, water, whatever, mushroom, whatever trips you're on doing, is that intention setting. It's like, yeah, I'm sovereign here. And this how I want this to be guided. It's to be that stronger, coherent field, which I feel is what the plattling brings to us. It's creating that stronger, coherent field. We feel it, and and when we're out in nature, there's like you say, like, oh, I have more clarity, I feel more intention, because your coherence is stepping up. You're actually reinforcing your own protection against the non-native EMF.
mm,
You're able to divinely move as well for the information that your body needs, not necessarily what someone wants to put on you. Because we give our power away to those EMF too. Oh yeah, I'm on my computer so and I get this and I get that. Not if you have a strong, not if you're building your coherent field stronger, you're going to have a stronger impact. And I think once we realize that as humans, how we can move in that way, like how the structure moves through the consciousness moves through the urine. It has its different speeds, its different motions, its different styles. We impact it. We can impact our environment and we can create the bubbles, whether you want to call them, of where we can live in our communities, because we can effectively affect a certain area with our coherent field. So the more coherence, the more we can penetrate the layers of the ether
mm.
to those areas where we've maybe not had the full access to. because recycling our urine gives it us. And you know what? That's why it's informed me. That's me. That's how I've been informed from these years of sitting there watching, gathering information, observing, feeling into my own experience and hearing other people's too. It's
Mm-hmm.
just, I love it.
I find too that the more time you spend with the urine in different practices, or in your case, watching it, you go to say something about it, and suddenly words come and sentences form that you didn't plan on, but the
Yeah,
information is present now. And so as soon as you need to say it, this information just comes out of your mouth.
right. Exactly.
And you're like, huh, yep, yep, I think that is true, actually, but I didn't know I could say it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then I'm like, just go Google it, see what, see what other, so then I'm going to research because, all this information, it's all researched and it's all out there already for us to uncover and explore and read about.
Yeah.
But it's been done by people before. I am just showing something and putting all the pieces together of those parts, you know.
And yet, one of the things that I'm seeing a lot right now in the research that I'm doing is that the study, most of the study of humans in the health fields is on humans who are not drinking their urine,
Yeah.
right? So when I'm trying to find something on how do you detox
Yeah,
this, or how does the system metabolize this thing, and I'm reading it all, and okay, they've seen that that's what's happened, but those are people who don't drink their urine, and I'm going, well,
exactly.
I'm drinking it every day.
Yeah,
I think I metabolize. Well, we both know we metabolize differently. We don't need as much food. Our
right.
the type of water we want has changed. We are metabolizing differently. We are absorbing differently. Just because you put something in your mouth doesn't mean you've absorbed it as well. So if people will say you need to take this many of zinc or vitamin D or whatever. Just because it goes in your mouth doesn't mean you've absorbed it. Um,
Mhm.
and then how do you release it on the other side? So does something get compounded, shifted, changed within your system as it's going through?
Exactly,
And
yeah.
um, I went to see a naturopath recently, and one of the interesting pieces, she was not familiar with urine therapy, open mind though, very willing to talk. She was very clear. She was like, if she was talking to another person in their, because I'm in my 40s, in their 40s, who was eating the amount I'm eating the kind of food I'm eating, um, she would be worried about their hormone levels.
Yeah.
But my hormone levels were all normal. So she's like, I can't tell you to change anything,
Right.
but it goes against her training.
Yeah.
And so this is part of the subtlety that we're dealing with now, is saying, on the one hand, how can we use the research that's been done and
Yeah.
extrapolate,
Yeah.
pull from it, work with
Yeah.
it, find the connections,
Yes.
but we have to find the connections.
That's exactly what I've had to do because I'm really aware, like, oh yeah, that's not even about you. It's not, a person's body that's more metabolizing things in a very different way. So I'm having to like use specific language to try and search deeper to give me some other information because we know that whole Google thing is corrupt anyway of actually, AI wants to give you all the information these days. And I'm like, oh God, you've got to go deeper into other people's research, but doing that, that's where you find elements of like, oh, that is exactly that, what I'm kinesthetically moving through, viewing. That's what he's talking about. It's all science and big words that I don't understand, but that's what that is. Because even like recently, because carbon's really on my like antennas right now, and especially fullerene.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, and they were saying, no, it's not in the body, da da da, and all this stuff. And I'm like, they're lying. So I did deeper dives and I was like, oh, trace elements in urine. Thank you. Not maximum major ones in mine, I'm for sure, because I'm metabolizing differently. Uh, but when I start on those things, I end up going down deep rabbit holes. I'm like, then I find fullerene is it costs over $100 million for a gram. It's used in atomic clocks by NASA. And I'm like, you bastards. You absolute bastards. Sorry for my language. You're going to tell us that we don't have the capacity to generate that within ourselves,
Mm.
our own atomic clock, because that's another part of the urine therapy is our dream state, our lucid dreaming, our access to how time moves and how we process all that, because they all know all that. They need to manipulate it. And urea is $1 billion industry. And
Yeah.
now we have fullerenes, which is $100 billion industry a gram.
Wow.
Like, come on, we create it, we can process it. So we become our own atomic clock. The way the mitochondria, their clocks, how they process light,
Mhm.
information, the universe, the ethers, the potential is the possibilities is unfounded. It's massive.
Hmm.
And I think coming into the Aquarian age, it's all gonna blow wide open. It's too much information now.
Question.
Yeah.
Fullerene, how do you spell it?
Fullerene. Sometimes they call it C60, C20.
Okay. Is it also, I've seen like Buckminster fullerene.
Yeah. Well, yeah, those the buckyballs,
Okay.
the shape, the formation tree. This is where I'm connecting the different geometry up with, and this was the direction I was just guided on with the samples because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm like. What carbon? What do you want me to do about carbon? No, nothing about carbon. So then I had to dive into carbon and why is like carbon footprint? Why is this so prevalent in our consciousness? You know, there's there's just a lot of information. I don't have the full answers to it, but
Yeah.
it's definitely and it's to do with the brain and all that neuro, the firing, whatever. I don't know, just I'm a willing participant on this this dynamic journey
Yeah.
of
Oh, yeah. It's
sorry.
no, it's so this is the thing where we end up going is so fascinating and we have to like, you don't expect to go down the carbon route or down something else. And I don't
Huh.
expect to end up on wherever I'm heading with what I'm doing either. But it does start to, it's a huge web, but it's also if I think back to the way that the urine the crystalline forms in urine are show up in the videos that you have and the shapes that you have, it feels a little bit like that. It starts off and then it keeps moving and searching out the next thing that is
Right.
connected to it.
Yeah.
So no,
As
it's
long as
really
it has the drive behind it and the
mhm.
push, it's going to keep going. And
Yeah.
in that crystallization, that's another key thing, especially when we're looking at the biology, because that's really key for me to watch the biology, is because of the process of nucleation. You can't have any crystal formation without nucleation, and that comes from the microbes. So they, within their structure, they contain a crystalline structure. So when they all line up, their
Mm.
crystalline structures and their environment shifting and changing, they're the drive and the push
Yeah.
behind that current moving. So we empower our biology using our plasma. Remember, we change that environment, we change that terrain, and we're waking up them ancient new seeds and stuff. So we are giving more of a drive and a push towards that nucleation process in the body. That's why the body can regenerate itself so quickly and so consistently and not stop
Mm.
because you've given it the push. Like you've given it the push now to enter the ether. It's too bad you give it the push. It's not going to stop. And Darlene talks about that in her like research. Just because they stopped their plasma didn't stop their healing. The drive and push is still there. So they are the drive and the push behind that energetic crystalline structure that is purifying, detoxifying, regenerating, rejuvenating, reinventing even,
Yeah.
because we did like the belief system, everything changes, everything shifts.
Yeah. That's a
Ah,
lovely place to stop. I know
yes,
there's more slides, but I think we covered the ones that were really related.
relevant. Yeah, that goes into babies and children and how
Okay.
it's all relevant to all the other pieces as well. That can be
Okay.
another
Yeah,
conversation.
There's more to talk
Yeah.
about.
Mhm.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, for presenting, for chatting, for going into these elements, and for showing the beauty of it. And coming back to this, you've often presented your work as showing the art, showing the beauty of
Mhm.
what is in urine, and everything that we're talking about, we have applied it in our lives to our bodies. If there's people, whoever's out there watching, it's like you can watch this and just admire the beauty of it.
Yeah.
There's no, urine therapy really is something, if it calls you, it calls you. And if it hasn't called you yet, admire the beauty and it's
Yeah.
all good. Off you go. But to the many people who watched the first conversation that we had, thank you very much. I hope that you're watching the second one and you're enjoying it just as much. And we will see you again next time. Thank you so much, Fiona.
Yeah. Thank you, Megan. It's been wonderful. Thanks.